Are we live? Is it streaming?
We're live, according to
Oh,
the
all right.
book.
That's okay. Well, let's cut that in post. So, good evening, everybody. My name's Elijah Gizzarelli. Welcome to Dancing Dragons Live. This is Dancing Dragons Coaching Collective's weekly show where you get to hear real coaches talk about real things that have real impacts on your life. It's episode number 7. That is correct, Will. Um, And I just want to say, give a quick shout out to the company. Dancing Dragons Coaching Collective is a brand new coaching company where you can match up with a coach and and they'll help you get to wherever you're going in life. We have all different kinds of coaches. We have executive coaching. We have um, health and fitness. We have wellness coaching. We have people that do numerology. We have any kind of coaching you could possibly imagine. We got it. Relationship coaching is a really big one. So go to dancingdragons.cc, get hooked up with a coach that's going to make your life better. So no further ado, I'll send it over to Coach Will.
Yeah, just on that point too, if your tummy hurts, you're going to go to the doctor. If you get in legal trouble, you're going to have to talk to a lawyer. And as I say every week, and we'll continue to say every week, you only get one life that at least we know of in this body. And online, there's a whole bunch of people, master classes. You can get a class from Bill Clinton or Jerry Seinfeld. But what we're doing here is more interactive. So maybe you want to be successful in business. Maybe you want to get that. Maybe you want to change careers. Maybe you want to boost in your career. Maybe you want to find that girl, find that guy. Maybe you want to start living healthier. Maybe you want to find purpose to your life. Maybe you want to overcome some trauma, right? There's a number of things. And I mean, you might as well do that. It's the most important thing. I always talk about how Think and Grow Rich, you kind of need a mentor. You need somebody to kind of walk you through that. And I won't elaborate too much more, but yeah, definitely check out Dancing Dragons Live and share the video and check out our previous videos. As a matter of fact, we recently interviewed J. Michael Springman, former U.S. diplomat and author. And then we have one of my favorite videos on this channel is How to Ace an Interview, so check that out. Today, we're going to talk about a few different things here. And it's interesting because we live in this world where there's like work-life balance and then people need to hustle, right? So where do you draw the line, right? What is best for you? So there's a few other things I want to get to, but let's talk about and thank you to Coach Megan for the topics here. Incredible ideas, couldn't be better. So let's talk about grinding, hustling and self-care versus self-care. I have a couple thoughts on this myself, but let's start with Coach Megan here. What are your thoughts on, because we live in a day in a world where unfortunately we have to work super hard just to make things. I mean, I think it's like 100 grand is like the poverty line. You need at least 100 grand to live in Tampa. You need it's just absolutely ridiculous. So we do need to keep up with the Joneses just to be able to put a roof over our heads. But at the same time, all work and no play make Jack a dull boy. So what do you think, Coach Megan?
I think it's so hard because we were raised in society, we were raised to just like work hard, play hard, and really get it done to whatever extent. But then we had the pandemic and there was, introductions to taking care of yourself. So I feel like there's just been this stigma or this contrast of trying to balance that out because you want to be your best self, but you also want to do your best. And that often seems like, you need to be the best. So I just feel like during this time, especially right now with all the uncertainty, it's definitely worth talking about and exploring because it's just an interesting time.
Yeah, and before I throw to Elijah, I'll give my 2 cents, and maybe you guys can give me some feedback on what you think. But I think for especially young men in their late teens, 20s, and 30s, and even if you're not where you want to be, it's never too late. But I think you should be grinding. I think you should. My advice would be try to work 60 hours a week. I know Elijah's already laughing at this, right? But my thing is, hey, because inflation is crazy, and I'm not just talking about the past 5-10 years. I'm talking about since like 1913. But because inflation is crazy, we have to kind of grind. I think men should be working bare minimum 60 hours a week. As a man, you should try to protect and provide for your family, and you literally can't do that without 60 hours a week. Now, I know there's exceptions, and that's a generalization, and I'm not talking to females also, But I think men should be working 60 hours a week until they get their money to work for them, and then they can have their self-care. Elijah, what are your thoughts on that? And I'd love to hear Coach Megan's retort as well.
I mean, well, one, I think it's always important to realize that there are all different kinds of walks of life, right? So any kind of advice or generalities doesn't apply to every single person. When you hear advice or somebody's opinion about something like that, obviously Will accepts that there are some people that that's just not the lifestyle that they want, and he's not going to suggest live a life that you hate, right? He's not going to suggest that, right? He's just saying he believes that most men would benefit from that kind of style, right? And I think that um, there's a little bit of wisdom there, but I think it's important, right? Like I'm a big fan of this guy named Alan Watts. Alan Watts was a professor at Berkeley in like the 60s and 70s, I guess. You can hear a lot of his lectures. They were recorded on YouTube, or I don't know, they're probably all over the place. But the guy taught Eastern philosophy. And one of his lectures, he talked about how, like, in the Western world, we have like this kind of toxic relationship when it comes to money, right? Like, it's like you want money to achieve things, right? Like you want money to achieve like different goals, whether it's for like food or shelter, security, luxury, these things, right? Um, and then what you need to do is you need to work to get that money, right? But it's like you don't want the money, you want the luxuries, you want the food, the shelter, right? The whatever it is, right? That you want to spend the money on. But the way he described it was that we've become a Pavlov's dog that learned to salivate at the wrong bell, right? We get way too attached to achieving money and not the actual things that we want to the money for, right? We kind of build ourselves throughout our childhood and our early adult life to focus on the wrong things. Like you might be able to achieve the things that you want with that money without actually getting the money. But if you're always fixated on how do I get my money up, how do I get my money up, you might like have tunnel vision and miss opportunities, right? So it's very important that you focus on what you want to do and then choose that. So I always think of grinding as like time sensitive. Like if you're like, my life is a grind, I mean, if that's the way you want to live your life, that's fine. That's just not how I see it. If you say like, hey, I have this goal, and in order to do that, I need to grind, then grind yourself to the bone to achieve that goal, right? But unless you have a specific goal in mind with a stopping point, I don't think that you're making a lot of progress. I think you're just grinding yourself and wearing yourself out, and you aren't taking care of yourself. So without that stopping point, that specific goal in mind, and SMART goals are specific, measurable, adjustable. I'm sorry, not adjustable, achievable. What is it? Time bound, and then the R is like readjustable or something like that. But anyway, you got to be able to change them, and you need to be able to achieve them, right? So you need to have a specific measurable goal in order to be smart about it. And without that, I think that you're just kind of spinning your wheels.
Yeah, I think I'm glad we kind of discussed that further too, because you're right. First of all, your point about getting tunnel vision. I mean, maybe you're working 40, 60 hours a week, and then you're not available to spend a day at the coffee shop and hear about somebody else, right? So and you're looking past other potential opportunities. So it is that fine balance there for sure too. And I think you bring up, even more importantly, is goal setting. I think everybody, when you're goal setting, you should write down what you want, and you should write it down as, and this is, par for the course here. Think and Grow Rich will tell you this. A lot of people say, that are successful will tell you, you want to write down what it is specifically that you want to achieve. And then from there, you can kind of plan, deconstruct and reverse what it's going to take to get you there. And then also, one quick other hint too is, what are you going to, when you're writing this down, you want to say what you're going to do or give in return for this, because you just can't get something from nothing there too. Megan, what do you think? Where's the fine line between really working your butt off for a goal, or, taking that time and giving self-care. You brought up with the pandemic too. There's obviously a lot of negative things that occurred during that. But one of the things that I thought was really good is there are certain type of people that just work and work and work and work and work. And that's cool, but then they never take a break. And I thought it was cool for the people that just work, 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 work. One of the silver linings is, hey, some people just have to chill and have life. So, how do you navigate that thin line right there between, doing what you can to achieve your goals, but then also taking time for self-care?
Yeah, so I think you both made good points about um, what we were talking about. And I would say that I kind of differ, but at the same time, think of similar points that I agree with. I just feel like, as I said, pandemic, it brought it, like the good parts, like you said, it highlighted the need for mental health, and there was more awareness brought to that. But I think that it's not necessarily a certain formula, like you said, Will, or like what you were saying, Eli. I feel like it's, you have to find what works for you. And I think that kind of resonates with life coaching, because it's not like a cookie cutter design. We have to figure out what works for you, and it just might differ per person. And I think there are different boundaries for each person. And like you said, the goals in mind, you have to keep that in mind and making sure that you're working towards that. So I feel like it's different for men and women, different ages. But I feel like as long as you think of your purpose alongside of it, as long as you're working towards a certain goal, you can't really fail, because if you're doing your best, if you're deciding what optimal looks like for you, then you can't really lose. And obviously that's easier said than done, because the world was just, it's about being better, being the best, improving, growth, and everything like that. But I think it really just comes down to always being aware of how to make sure that you're balancing things out. Like you're getting the work done, you're playing hard, but nothing is too extreme where you kind of lose the point of why you're doing everything in the first place.
Yeah, Coach Megan, you bring up a great point, and that's one of the benefits that I kind of hinted at earlier of having a life coach, is because a life coach, when you tell them, what you want to overcome or what you want to do, they're a different perspective. They can see things that you can't see, and like you said, they can tailor make something. They can help you with the goal setting, and it's also someone that can help you be accountable to what you want to do, right? So a lot of times people want to go to the gym, but they don't have a gym buddy, and that gym buddy, hey, I'm getting you at 9 a.m. or I'm getting you at 7 p.m., whatever it is, that helps keep you accountable. So that those are some of the benefits that you have right there too. I mean, even myself, right? I mean, if I was super rich, I would have some tall, strong dude wake me up at 5 a.m. be like, get in the gym right now, right? And I'd have like 17 pack abs. I don't. So I'm working on it. That's why I'm working 75 hours a week and have no social life. Kidding. All right. So on this very topic, right? So what would you say, Elijah? Like, and I guess the answer to it really is what Megan said. I mean, find out what you want, a combination of what these guys both said. Find out what you want, think about what you want for a while. Some people, like Elijah said, some people just want the money, but they don't really realize what they were using it from. Is it, do you want the money so you can spend more time with your kids, or maybe you're single and you want to take trips to Europe, or you want to buy an RV, right? So you have to kind of think about what your goal is. And if you get yourself a life coach dancing at dancingdragons.cc, we can help tailor make that for you. The next one too is analyzing things versus overthinking things. And I was talking to somebody earlier today about this very topic, because you do want to be analytical, right? You do want to think ahead, and it also is good, in my opinion. Let's see if these guys agree or disagree, to kind of look back and analyze things as well too. But again, there's a thin line between analyzing things and kind of overthinking things, and you kind of get yourself in a catatonic state, and you're not moving forward. Coach Eli, what are your thoughts? Where's that line, right, between analyzing things and overthinking them?
It's hard. It's really hard to figure it out, especially when you're in the moment and you're overthinking something. It doesn't feel like you're overthinking it, right? But that's exactly what's happening. So I think that it's kind of has to do more with like in order to avoid it, you have to have some sort of like discipline of like restarting your thinking pattern. And I think that this works. And I think a great example of a giant failure of this was at the recent freestyle chess championship in Paris between, and again, this is a little bit of a geeky example, so forgive me if you're not into the chess scene, right? But Magnus Carlsen is the greatest chess player probably of all time. I actually think it's Bobby Fischer, but if Magnus Carlsen played Bobby Fischer in the prime, like Magnus Carlsen's going to win because he's had the benefit of working with computers for preparation his whole life, right? So, but just as far as talent wise, I think Bobby Fischer had him. But and then it was against his biggest rival, which is Hikaru Nakamura, who's one of the best players ever. But it's not a big rivalry because Magnus almost always wins, right? But they were at this freestyle, which means that it's like chess, except for the back rank is like mixed up into random variations, right? So it's a little bit more interesting. It's less memorization and more creativity. And it was actually invented by Bobby Fischer. Go figure. So anyway, so they were at the final match of this, and Hikaru needed to win, and Magnus Carlsen usually beats him, and so it's like a high pressure thing. If they tie, if it's a stalemate, Magnus Carlsen wins the tournament and the championship along with it. And so Hikaru Nakamura's career has basically been him losing to Magnus Carlsen many times, right? And so he's actually winning. Like they're getting towards the end of the game and it looks like he's going to win. And he gets into this position where it's a winning position. And at the highest level of chess, when you get a winning position that late in the game, it's over. The game's over, right? And he just makes an objectively terrible move. Like I was watching it live and he had plenty of time on the clock. It wasn't a time crunch. I was watching it live and he just he looked at the board for like 3 or 4 minutes. I forget how long it was, but he had plenty of time to make the move. And he had a very simple move that would have won him the game. Instead, he made this other move that like immediately lost him his advantage, right? And so it was just an objectively terrible move. But it's like, when you get into this it's not that he's not a good chess player. Obviously, he's one of the greatest chess players to ever play the game. And I saw that he made a mistake as soon as he made the move. So how is that even possible? And the point is that when you're in your own head, the first thing that you think about is the most important things, right? The first things is you identify, like that's just how we are as like a species. We identify the most important things, like the most important problems. And then the longer you think about it, you start like drifting from the most important things. And you start focusing on minutia. And then you kind of will build up the importance of certain minutia in a situation. And then when you go to make your decision, you've forgotten about the most important things. And that's what overthinking is. And that's exactly what happened to Hikaru when he made that terrible move. And that's what happens to many, many people throughout our lives, right? We are always doing this. So the important thing is that when you've been analyzing a problem for a long time, it would be great if you could talk to other people. In the case of Hikaru Nakamura in the chess championship, it would be cheating if he talked to other people, right? But you are not in a chess tournament, so you should definitely talk to somebody else. In fact, somebody that's like a professional or something would probably be amazing if you have that option available to you. But like you could talk to other people. But if that is not an option, what you have to do is you have to kind of reset and have the discipline of going back to the beginning of your thought process and say like, okay, what's the most important things? And if you do that, you will avoid making very bad decisions due to overthinking.
Yeah, and just to compound on that a little bit too, there's a couple things I want to talk about. And the first one is, every dating coach will tell you if you're a guy, if you see a girl that you're interested in, you have 3 seconds to make a move, right? You go up within 3 seconds. Why is that? Because you start overthinking it and then you get worried. No, you just need to go up and talk, right? 3 seconds, then you start overthinking it. And then to Elijah's point, right? Mental toughness is something that is learned and something that you you have to have discipline in. And like Elijah also said, we have several. I mean, we've got coaches, everyone from professors to Navy SEALs, right? And they can tell you all about mental toughness and how to work on that at dancingdragons.cc. One of the things that I thought was most fascinating about this is I'll use a sports analogy. So I forget if it was the 87, 88, or 89 NBA All-Star game. Everybody's watching. It was a fantastic All-Star game. Anybody can pull this up on YouTube. I forget which one it is. Super dope. And I'm going to have to go back and look at this one. So back, if anybody watches NBA All-Stars games today, they're not competitive. No one plays defense. But back then, it actually meant something. There was a lot of pride to this, right? So the game is at the fourth quarter. Teams have been evenly matched. Nobody has gotten a lead more than a few points. At the very end of the game, the West is down 2 points, and there's a foul, and it's 2 free throws. It's the one guy, and because it's the foul happened at the very end of the game, there's nobody even standing there. It's just you, the crowd, and everybody in the United States. And if you don't hit both of these free throws, your team blows it, right? So you have to have a tremendous amount of mental discipline. How do you go before we go to Megan, Elijah? How do you work on that? Obviously, we're telling you dancingdragons.cc, but what are some quick tips and tips for people that are not at that elite sports level? What are some things that people can do right now to start working on that mental discipline? Because if I was there in front of and this guy was a good free throw shooter. By the way, he hits the free throws. The game goes to overtime. It's epic. But it just goes to show you, because like even the best players in the world, when you got crazy and the pressure's on you, it's just you, and you have to make that shot. So how do you tap into that mental discipline to be able to perform, maybe not in such clutch moments, but in everyday life?
I mean, that's a really difficult question. So, in fact, I think if anybody had the answer to it, then the Eagles kicker, Elliott, wouldn't have had the yips all year this year and missed so many field goals. I'm sure he got enough money and the Philadelphia Eagles got enough money that they could have given him the right advice to get rid of these yips. But, thus there's no panacea for this. What I would say is I think mental discipline is like I don't want to say the word holistic. It's kind of like you can train mental discipline. Anything that's related to it will help everything that's related to it. You know what I'm saying? Right? So just like the thing, like when your alarm goes off in the morning, waking up, like getting out of bed then, right? Not hitting snooze, get out of bed then. That will build your mental discipline, right? When you're like on a diet or something, right? And it's like, you've eaten enough food, but you're still kind of in that like frenzy kind of mode, like telling yourself, no, I don't need to eat any more money. I don't need to eat any more right now. I've eaten enough, right? That kind of stuff will build that mental discipline. And I think that you'll be able to see that throughout your whole life whenever any of this stuff comes up. But there is no like panacea. Otherwise, Jake Elliott would have hit more field goals. By the way, though, he was pretty good in the playoffs. He did miss his first kick in the playoffs ever, but he was pretty good.
And what Elijah brings up is very important, because he brought up the yips. And anybody that doesn't watch sports doesn't know what that is. It could be an NBA player, right? Who could have a smooth jump shot and be hitting jump shots. And then all of a sudden he'll develop a little hitch and he just can't. There was one pitcher, right? He was a dominant pitcher, but he couldn't throw to first base. It would just go anywhere. And so runners just started stealing on him. So what happens is here, many almost, I don't have a number, but a large amount of athletes have life coaches as well too. I mean, so if it's good enough for the best people, the best athletes in the world, and I mean, like I said, some of the top business people, I mean, you're kind of behind if you're not going to dancingdragons.cc, because these people already have this, right? And so you kind of want to catch up. Cheese and crackers. What did I write down here? I had an awesome point. Darn it. Oh man. So okay. And another thing that Elijah brings up too is this, right? Hold on, I got it. Sorry. Apologize for that. Cheese and crackers. What the heck was I just saying? I'm totally for space, and sorry about that, guys. By the way, share the live right now while I collect my thoughts. But yeah, it is a thin line between, overanalyzing things like I'm doing right now, right? And also just being confident and not overthinking things. Right now is a classic case of overthinking things. That's my point too, right? So sometimes you just got to go with the feel. Sometimes when pitchers are out there, they're trying to throw the ball to a specific place. You just got to go with your feeling as well. So I'll tack back on my other thoughts once I can recollect them. But yeah, Coach Megan, what would you say to the fine line between overanalyzing things and just being pragmatic and looking at things?
I think it's just so hard and it's such a fine line. And we all need to remember that it's part of being human. And if you just keep being aware about it, that should help. Like maybe you can catch yourself, oh, I'm starting to spiral, like step back and reframe. And remembering that this is something you have to maintain. It doesn't get cured. So if people feel discouraged, like, oh, I'm always doing this, I'm always doing that, it's going to be something that you're going to deal with for the rest of your life. And it is mental stamina, as you guys talked about. And you just need to keep working at it. And then over time, you can tailor that to your own mind. You can be able to situate it towards different circumstances, different people. But it's just really hard. And I think the only time that you will know that fine line is if you're constantly aware. And so having a coach, things like that, it really is helpful
Yeah.
because we all need that. Coaches need coaches, humans need humans. Like we're all out here together trying to support each other. And we just got to remember that it's okay, it's normal, it happens. But as soon as you're aware of it, kind of step back, breathe, and be like, okay, it's okay, So it's a
Yeah,
fine
and
line. It's always happening. But if you remember that,
yeah.
then it'll be
And
okay.
it's just something to be yeah, you're absolutely right. Be cognizant of it too, kind of just think about it. And to Elijah's point, which I finally remembered, is right. So you can get to the point where you're like, all right, I'm gonna overeat, or I'll just have another drink, and you kind of justify it to yourself, and then days become weeks or whatever. But on the same tip, one of the things that I would recommend to people is I remember like the first time I went to the gym, I don't know, I was like 17, 18 years old. And I was drinking soda at the time, right? And that's bad, right? And I went to the gym and, worked out. And then afterwards, I ran for like 20, 30 minutes. And then I was like, oh, I was maxing out. And I was like, oh man, that was like it was like 280 calories. And then I went to the store and I was going to get myself a Dr. Pepper. And that thing said 280 calories. I was like, oh man, one drink is just going to erase everything I did. So because I did that one step going to the gym then I was like, all right, let me drink a little something more healthy. Maybe let me have a smoothie or a juice instead. And so those things can also snowball. So just taking that first step is something that's really, really important, right? Everyone knows that's everyone to the gym. They don't want to go to the gym, but after they leave the gym that first time, they're like, oh man, I feel like I just could
Every
take
time.
on the world right now, right? So
Yeah.
it's those first steps and they get the snowballs, and then once you go to the gym and then you're feeling healthy, then you're like, all right, well, I just went to the gym, I'm not gonna eat Kinder Bueno all day. Who knows, I may just I can't unfortunately anymore because I'm vegan, but those things are delectable. We're not sponsored yet, but at Kinder Bueno, if you want to, please hit us up at Dancing Dragons Live, dancingdragons.cc. All right, so now let's get to the final of the triumvirate here, getting help from people, right? I was talking to another person today, and they have a big family. They have 14 siblings, and they were like, when I need advice, I'll go to one of the siblings, and if that doesn't work, I'll go to a few, and that's really cool. Unfortunately, and they were one of the younger of the siblings, right? So I think actually the youngest. So that's cool when you have people that you trust that have experienced life before you and can kind of give you those things. But those people aren't always right either. Sometimes they can be very insightful. Coach Megan, what's your take on getting advice from friends versus kind of professional help?
So I think it's important to have this ongoing dialogue, always be open to learning new things, always be open to, seeing what you can be done differently. It's good to have that support system of friends, but at the same time, you know, you're not going to go ask a vegan about the best steak restaurants. Like you should, you know, it should depend on what you're doing. And I think once you start to see um, any kind of subjective like reasoning, you really need to step back and think, okay, maybe even though my friends mean well, maybe I need to talk to somebody else. and vice versa. And they each have their own, purposes. Like friends might be biased because they just want you to be happy, but a professional can kind of see past that and be like, this is tough love, or I guess, so it's just, I think just being always making sure you're balancing it out and recognizing that, one doesn't replace the other, but they both supplement each other well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because I would still, regardless, I mean, I highly recommend getting a life coach. But also, I would still bounce ideas off your family and friends because they know you super well. And and this just to showcase how good of a life coach that I am a vegan, but the best corporate steakhouse that you can go to is definitely Longhorn. And the reason is not the steak, but they give you the beer in the frosty glasses. And that it just makes a world of a difference, you know?
That's the
Megan's
best
not
part
feeling
about
good
a
on this.
steak restaurant, the beer.
Well, no, because it's the glass they give you. They'll give you a frozen glass as opposed to just a regular lukewarm glass that just came out of the dishwasher. It's all warm. You pour cold, delicious beer in a warm glass, and it's like, meh. But when it comes out with a frosty glass, and it's like, it just makes the world of a difference, right? So, Elijah, do you feel me on that? And then, what's your take on this?
To each their own.
You don't like a cold? Okay, whatever.
It's about steak, not about the beer.
All right, well, stop losing me
But
clients,
that's the
right?
thing.
Kind
Like, you don't have to disagree with me. I'm not right. You're not wrong. Like, that's why you should be able to think about when you want to talk to certain people about different things, because that's always going to be part of the answer that you're going to hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Elijah,
I
what's your
mean,
take?
I think it's important to really understand. It's hard to understand your situation because again, it's like your life, right? So you don't know what it's like to live another life. So it's hard to almost evaluate your own support system, right? And how honest they are with you. I do believe that we have like this kind of there's like a cowardice that has been seeping through our personal relationships in society over the past, I don't know, probably 30 years, where we really have shrunk from giving people constructive criticism or telling them what we really think about them. And it's not supportive at all. And people will say, I'm just trying to be supportive. And it's like, that's not supporting. That is the opposite. That is destroying your friend, right? If they're doing something that you see, like they're your friend, if they're doing something that you don't like and you're not willing to tell them, imagine the people that aren't friends with them and what they think of them, right? So if you're not like giving them that feedback and being like, hey, you're messing up, you're not being a very good friend. I'm sorry, like that's just a fact. And there's so few people I find nowadays that are willing to actually confront their friends when they're messing up. There's like a funny like meme kind of the joke like yas lighting, right? Instead of gaslighting, like yas. And it's true though. It's a serious problem, right? Like your friend like your friend's like, oh, like I was 15 minutes late today and my boss came up to me and said, hey, you can't do that. And it's like, but yeah, well then who's going to run the cash register? If you fire me, who's going to? And then you're like, yeah, you do everything in there. It's like, no, don't be 15 minutes late. It doesn't matter what you did. Okay. I get it. I'm your friend, but like don't be late. It's not acceptable behavior. It doesn't matter what else you do. It doesn't make up for being late. Right. So, it's just kind of like this kind of thing we've gotten into in society. And it's like, I think like the only thing you're allowed to judge other people on is how judgmental they are, which is kind of funny.
Ironic.
Like it's the only thing that you're like it's socially acceptable to judge somebody harshly on is being judgmental. Like, oh, that like that judgmental guy over there. But the point is that if you're in a situation, which is becoming more and more common these days, where people, your friends, your support system, they aren't like correcting you on a regular basis. then there's a problem there, right? You're not getting good information. If you aren't constantly getting feedback like, hey, that wasn't cool. Hey, that wasn't cool. Hey, you shouldn't do that. That should be a normal part of everybody's life, right? And so that's the way to see it, right? Don't think that you're just an awesome person who does no wrong, because that's not right. The problem is that your support system is too supportive, right? And so in that case, I would highly suggest that you need to pay somebody to tell you how you're messing up, because that's the only way you're going to get the truth, right? Or you could seek out, you could join an organization, take on some sort of mentor in some capacity, that kind of thing. But I think that the easiest way, and which is why I think that coaching has such a bright future, is because a lot of these things that people used to have, these support systems that had feedback and stuff, are kind of going to the wayside. You're not having your priest scold you for, lusting too much, or, doing this or that. And so now you just don't get that feedback ever, right? And which in some ways could be a good thing, some ways could be a bad thing, but it's definitely a thing, right? And if we're not looking at it to make sure that we're still getting important feedback, then we're going to have worse outcomes, which I think that we're seeing as far as mental health in this country and, just basically in the world.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, and if you take a look at this on like the highest of the high level, you got folks like Justin Bieber, Kanye West, and they've had life coaches for a very long time. And it's because the friends around them, they're just, yes, yes, oh yeah, whatever you say, you're so awesome, you're so cool. I could never call you out on that. But then if you take it back to your level where your friends are too, I mean, it's not very comfortable to tell Elijah that he's got a terrible taste in music and he's wrong about politics, but I do it because I love Elijah, right? And so it is a difficult thing, right? Right? Like, because especially people want to retain those relationships with you, and these can be difficult topics, right? But a life coach is going to say, okay, hey, right, you can't do that, right? So that's one of the things too. And then my little thing on this
just to stay on that topic real quick, I think that the best example of this is Drake's music video, Hotline Bling, I think it's called. Is that it? Yeah, right. It's like, I don't know those. Can only
you're gonna
mean
give us a
one thing.
copyright
And
strike
does that
because
whole
your
dance
voice is
thing.
just like Drake's.
Yeah, it's good, right? So I should have done American Idol. I know. But yeah, like the only way that video happens is if you have only yes men in your life. Like nobody told Drake, like, this is the worst music video I've ever seen in my life. Like nobody said that. Like think about how many people's jobs, it was literally somebody's job to watch it and be like, this is good, and that person was like, this is
Elijah,
good. And it was a terrible music video.
Yo, you were spot on. And actually, Elijah has just regained some of my confidence in his taste in music by pointing that out. I would say the same thing. If anybody remembers, it's a long time ago. It's a song with Paul Wall, and it was just like booty, 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 rocking everywhere, booty, 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 and that
Well,
went
that's
through
a
like seven.
fantastic song. I don't know what you're talking
Oh,
about.
see, he just. Oh my God!
It is a
I
good
hope you.
song.
Oh my God! I hope you guys are trolling me. Okay, whatever. We'll save that for next week. But yeah, literally people were like, this is like Bob Dylan and Jimi Hendrix. All right, this is Wu-Tang Clan. All right, so yeah, and so this is the topic that we're on right now, right? Because this is what most people do is they'll ask for help and from their friends and family. Now, the good part about getting information from your friends and family is they care about you and they want what's best for you. However, the bad part about that is they don't always know what's best, right? And that's why we're here with dancingdragons.cc, because like I'll just say, right, some of my friends, they don't know how to dress, right? I'm always giving my friends clothes, right? And I'm like, one of my friends is like, oh yeah, I want to meet more girls. I was like, okay, well, maybe get the nacho stain off the sweater you're wearing right now out in public, right? Here, maybe throw on a shirt with a collar. I don't know, maybe shave, maybe take a shower, right? Some basic things, right? But not everybody has that friend that's going to tell you that, right? And then same thing with dating. A lot of things that men and women think are effective in dating are actually counterproductive to what they're doing, right? Family will say, oh, well, just do this or just do that. Or why don't you go buy her some flowers or something like that? And that's not always the remedy. And, like that's why if you're in a relationship, a dating coach is a lot better than, asking your bro, right? Because these are people that are trained in that, right? And the same thing in business, right? Some of these, like you asked, and I know Elijah wants to jump in on this too, but same thing in business, right? I'm not gonna ask one of my bros like, oh, well, what does it take to be a successful um, multimillionaire? Because unfortunately, not well. mm, Maybe one, but no, I don't know any multimillionaires. I know people that are pretty close, right? But you can't, and you can't. They're not going to give you anything good because they're not a multimillionaire, and that's why life coaching is dope. And we have coaches here that have succeeded, that train other executive coaches, right? So it's just the difference between saying, hey, my tummy hurts. What do you think I should do? Or going to a doctor, right? So that's what I would say. Coach Eli, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that we kind of run into this, and even when your family is like being courageous and telling you what they really think, those thoughts could be bad thoughts. And I'm not saying that like coaches have like a monopoly on good thoughts, or a therapist, or whoever else you might hire to like help you out or whatever, right? I'm not saying that at all. Sometimes family members can be give you invaluable advice, right?
Agreed.
And I think that would be probably better for most people if they talk to their family more about their problems, right? There are some problems that are a little bit sensitive and maybe about your family members that you don't want to talk to them about, right? So there are those types of situations. But what I would say is that it's really important that if somebody's giving you advice, it needs to be about a subject where it's like you want to be where they are in that subject, right? Like that's like a very important thing. Like I know a woman who was telling me like how she was getting all this like advice. She asked me what I thought about it was like relationship advice, and she was telling me like I know her family pretty well, so she was telling me like she got their advice from this person and that person and that person, and I was like, I mean, no offense, like, and I was like trying not to be like offensive, or I was like, but all those people are like single. And they're telling you how to like help out with you. Like a couple of them are divorced, right? And like if it's like they're single now and like they're not going to help you with your relationship, it's just not going to happen. Like if like those are the worst people I could imagine you going to get advice from, right? Like I'm not saying that they didn't have good advice. I'm just saying that if statistically speaking, I'm just going to gamble that their advice probably isn't the best. They might have given her the best advice possible, right? And that can happen. But I'm just saying it's not likely. And so you should kind of see those types of things as red flags. If somebody tells you how to be a millionaire and they're not a millionaire, maybe it's not going to work. Just maybe.
Hi guys, I'm just in my garage checking my Lamborghini. Okay, guys don't know that one. All right, whatever.
No. If I may
But keep
interject.
going. No, go ahead, Coach Megan. I thought you guys had saw that video. Sorry.
I guess we have homework now, Eli. So I just think it's important, like we mentioned about the differences between, talking to family and friends and talking to professional. I think it's really important to remember that, like, in the end of the day, it's going to be your decision, and you should find what resonates with you, because you can listen to everybody, whether they're professional or not, but until you feel like that's the right decision for you, then it won't really mean as much as it could. And so I think it's important I think it'd be a good practice to get, to talk to family and friends and to talk to a professional, but remembering that the professional is going to be the person that wants the best for you, and you have to make sure that their answer also resonates within yourself. And same with the family and friends, that they they may want the best for you at the same time. So it's just like what you guys were saying. I just think it's important to remember that at the end of the day, it's up to that person. And that's why life coaching is so important, because we help you unearth like what's there already versus like telling you what to do, So I think it's important that people need to remember the power that they have within themselves. And even though the point of asking for help, whether professional or not, is important, you have to find what fits for you. And that's why, different kinds of help is important too, like a life coach versus a doctor versus, things like that. If I'm making sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to your point, in my opinion, I think the people that are self-actualized, or maybe not that word, but the best versions of themselves are people that are confident actually being themselves, right? Just being who they are, right? I think one of the things that happens to us as a society is, I mean, take a look at children. They'll be direct, they'll ask you crazy questions, they'll say awesome things. They're just so adorable and innocent. But then something happens around puberty, and society is like, all right, well, you could be an emo kid or a hip hop kid or this or that. And society has these pre-programmed little boxes for you to adopt. And the most beautiful thing you can be as a human being is your genuine self. And that's one of the benefits of life coaching is, I said earlier, if you get a tummy ache, you're going to go to a doctor, right? And that's going to be specifically tailor made to whatever your problem is. And if I get in legal trouble, I might go see a lawyer, and that's going to be legal advice specifically tailored to my scenario in my case. And then I also brought up the fact that there are master classes now, and you could go learn something from Bill Clinton or Jerry Seinfeld. But the difference is, it's not going to be individualized to you and what you want to accomplish, right? Not everybody wants to work 60 hours a week. Everybody wants something different, right? Some people just want to be left alone in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, and some people want to be on Broadway with the top hat, right? So it's all different, and then the spectrum in between there. And that's, I think, one of the benefits of a life coach is you're able to get something tailor made to what you want, your unique self, and it helps you open you as a genuine person. And I think that's when you're most self actualized. And to both of your points there, right? So we've got coaches here that are dating coaches. That's one of the hats I wear. I coach a few different things, but I can tell you for myself, like, you could get advice, and we have dating coaches that are way more awesome than me. But me, just in this one thing, right? Like, I've went there and I've paid for classes. I've bought books. I've read all the free audiobooks. I know what every dating coach has ever said. Like, there may be a couple new ones out in the last couple months, but I've done my research, right? And just to use dating, and like I said, there's health and wellness. There's a number of things. These people have been studying these things all their lives. And when we just keep using dating as an example, these coaches and stuff like that, they're not just pulling things out of thin air. They're understanding human psychology, human evolution, behavior. One of the things I always like to bring up, right, is just in general, right? You guys see Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, they all talk like this, and they got big open hands. Why is that? Why is that? Because when you have an open hand, you're subcommunicating to people, I am trustworthy. Why is that? Because evolution back in the day, or God, or whatever you guys want to believe in, but either way, if you accept that history happened, people would have a rock or a spear in the hand, and they might not show you that, right? But coming somebody with an open hand, handshake, or open hands is something that communicates, hey, I'm trustworthy, right? So these people are experts in their field, and if you truly want to maximize your life and you truly want to make the best of your one life, you want to be the best person you can, you want to be successful in relationships, you want to be successful in business and with your family, I really implore you guys to go check out dancingdragons.cc. Dancingdragons.cc. One more time for memorizational skills. All you marketing kids know 3 times in a row. And you know what's crazy too? Marketing kids don't even study Edward Bernays. So we're gonna have to talk about Edward Bernays in a future episode. Dancingdragons.cc. Check us out. Check out some of the coaches we have here. It's our job to match you with the best person, the best coach possible, right? For your specific needs. So check us out at Dancing Dragons Live. Browse some of the coaches. Let's start with Coach Eli, and then we'll give Megan the floor for any final thoughts on this topic here.
No, I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff today. And I think that the biggest takeaway here is that it's to really go back to that first point where we're talking about grind versus self-care, right? And we didn't talk too much about self-care. We kind of hustled on by, right? We grinded it out,
right
and
past
we
that.
didn't
Yeah.
we didn't self-care the topic. We didn't self, yeah. So, but the point is that you gotta live actively. Like, you need to make active decisions in your life. Don't let other people live for you, and don't just do what you think is expected of you, right? Like, shape your life to what you want it to be, right? And then let that inform your decision making. And again, you don't want to overanalyze it, right? You don't want don't want to outthink yourself, right? But the point is that well, an example, I was talking to this woman. She had a very successful career. She was a lawyer. She was like a prosecutor. She was like I she was like the first black female prosecutor somewhere or something like that. I don't remember her exact resume, right? But she was pretty prominent. She had a very successful career, and we were talking about it. And she was getting ready to retire, um, and and she was like, now that I'm about to retire, because I was talking about this topic, I was like, I always thought that retirement was kind of a silly idea, right? Like it's just like this silly thing. It's like this little carrot they wave at the end of the stick. And it's like, why is everybody so excited to retire? Like, like it just doesn't make sense. It's like one day you're going to stop being productive. Like I don't understand like what the thing is, right? So, and so I was like talking about this, and I was like, it's just kind of this weird social thing where we got stuck on this idea of retirement. And she was about to retire, and she had brought it up, and then she's like, honestly, I've been thinking about that for the last 6 months, and I can't get it out of my head. Like, why am I retiring? Like, and then why? And she's like, and even more so, why did I work so hard so that I could retire now? Like, she was like, it was like. She was like getting really contemplative about it. And she's like, I'm like looking back at my whole career. And again, she had a very fulfilling career. She was quite a bit notoriety. And yet she was still kind of struggling with this concept of like, why did I grind so hard and not just enjoy the ride, not just further my personal relationships as opposed to putting in a few extra hours at some law firm or some bureau that isn't going to appreciate you after you're gone, right? And so I think it's really important to think about our relationship to money, our profession, what we're getting out of it, how we're interacting with the world and what our legacy is going to be, and to really deliberately go through those things in your life and see what you want your life to be, because you only got one. As Will often points out, maybe there's reincarnation, right? But this is going to be the only one you remember right now. So, so yeah, I think that's kind of like an important thing. So, if you are going to be self-caring, I think that's the first thing that you do before you grind is you figure out what kind of life you want to live. Yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, and just quickly, I'm not just some kook. There have been 2 generations of researchers and professors at the University of Virginia that have done some pretty compelling investigations. I'm not sold on the idea of reincarnation. And they were also recently on a podcast of Psychology Today, so go check it out. And they were saying the same kooky things, but it's interesting. But you're regardless, either way, even if you do get to come back or whatever, you only got this one right now. So, Coach Megan, what are your thoughts on everything that we just said here tonight, and any final thoughts?
Also, reincarnation. What do you think about that? Anyway, go ahead.
That'd be another conversation for me. As you guys said, we've talked about so much, and it's all important, and they're all related. And the point is that there's only one you, this one life. Okay, I guess I'm like, okay, one you, one life, and you just really got to make the most of it for what you think your purpose is, for who you are, because that's what we want to be. We want to be happy, and we want to, keep growing and figure out what our best life looks like. And so I think if we think about these mistakes that we make and try to remember it's all just about lifestyle practices and being aware and having those support systems, whether it's professional or friends, knowing that I get really excited about this stuff and I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, no, and to your point, you're just making me think right now. It's like, one of the things I think about, when I was younger, I was like, well, what is my purpose, right? Like, is maybe there's something I was meant to be. And what I've come to think at this point, I keep an open but skeptical mind, is you give your life your own purpose. And so, what I would like the viewers to do today as homework is think about what your purpose is in life. Think about what you want to do in life, not just, it's good to, think about the fun things. I personally believe that life should be about 50-50, right? Do some awesome things. And, I actually, I want to talk to Eliza later tonight or tomorrow, because I think, I had another thought today. Maybe altruism is real. That's kind of a side note, but we
It's
want
not
to,
real.
whatever. I have an idea. We'll talk about that later. But the thing
Okay.
is, regardless, regardless of if altruism is real or not, uh you want to enjoy your life, and then you also want to be satisfied, and you want to be useful, and you want to be productive. So it's a thin line, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. I definitely suggest visiting dancingdragons.cc and checking us out live next Monday at 8:30 p.m. But yeah, I mean, that's the homework for everybody, right? Is kind of think about today. Think about, what do you want to do with your life? What is your legacy, right? We're all gonna vanish sometime, probably. What do you want to be known for? How do you want to be remembered? What do you want your life to be about? Think about that, and then visit dancingdragons.cc, and we'll have you have a plethora of people to choose from to help you navigate that and do that, right? Because it would just suck to be. Go ahead, Elijah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, before we go too, if you want to know why I don't believe altruism exists, you can go to our second episode of Dancing Dragons Live. I think that was their second episode. It was pro-social versus antisocial behavior. So
That was a
we had a lengthy
fascinating.
discussion about altruism in that episode.
We did, and that's a
Or if you don't want to hear it from me, you can go look up what Ayn Rand had to say on the topic. I think she's pretty solid.
She is, and one of the things you'll learn from that episode is Ayn Rand is like probably the most prominent female philosopher of all time, and you haven't heard of her. Why? I don't know. Go check out our episode. Check out our episode last week with J. Michael Springman, former U.S. diplomat, author, and lawyer. And then man, if you're looking for a job right now, I honestly think Coach Megan and myself and Eli. Coach Megan is also is somebody that's very prominent in this field. Coach Eli's given thousands of interviews, and he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. And I've given hundreds, if not thousands, of interviews. I've been a recruiter. I've done management in a lot of places. I really think that we put together an excellent episode on how to ace an interview. And before we go, I want to say thank you to Coach Megan. We had to kind of change our plans right before this, and Coach Megan gave us a great topic, literally a perfect topic. So thank you to Coach Megan for the topic and for joining, as well as your wonderful insight. And thank you to Coach
Pleasure.
Elijah as well for being completely wrong about altruism in your musical chase. And we're going to go cut up the beginning of this video. We will see you guys next Monday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Check us out. Give us a subscribe right now. Like, share, find us on LinkedIn, and take this video right here. Hit the share button and send it to your friends on Facebook, email, text message. Let's help grow this platform here. And that's one of the things that you can do, right? Because we all want to be the best, most fulfilled, genuine versions of ourselves. And that's what we're doing at dancingdragons.cc. Check us out at dancingdragons.cc, dancingdragons.cc. We will see you folks next Monday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Have a swell evening.
And as always, be excellent to each other.
And have fun with this.